So here's the game plan for today. I'm going to start by walking you through the 15 beats, and then I'm going to give you an example where we see these beats used in action. We start with an opening image, then the theme is stated. Pages 1 to 10 is where we have the setup. And at page 20, there is the catalyst. Now page 12 to 25 is where we witness the debate. And at page 25, we break into Act 2. Around page 30, we introduce a B story. And from here, we have a good amount of time dedicated to fun and games. At page 55, we'll introduce the midpoint. But from there, the bad guys close in. This happens until we get to the all is lost moment on page 75. And from here, our poor protagonist reaches the dark night of the soul. At page 85, we break into Act 3. And then we have the finale with a final image closing the story. In the book, Blake Snyder is particular about at what page what things are supposed to happen. But because I don't want this video series to be too prescriptive, we're just going to walk through the beats, and I'm not going to focus too much on the page count. It's something you can further look into if you want, but we're focusing on story here. We start with the opening image. This is the first look or first impression of what's about to come next. This could mirror the closing image and be some form of full circle moment, or it could be something unique that sets the mood for the journey we're about to go on. If we look at Iron Man, the opening image is that of military vehicles making their way through a dusty desert. We get the feeling that we're in for some action from the get-go. Next, the theme is stated. The book says that somebody who is often not the main character poses a question or makes a statement that is the theme for the movie. We have clues from early on from when we hear Tony say,
"Yeah, peace. I love peace. Be out of a job with peace."
And just a few minutes later, we hear him interviewed.
And what do you say to your other nickname, the Merchant of Death?
That's not bad.
The theme pokes to whether there is more to Tony's life than work, weapons, and I really want to use another word that starts with a W. So work, weapons, and winning. Well, we follow this theme throughout the rest of the film. Next, we have the setup. Here we introduce the main characters, as well as the world as it was before the story really flings into motion. This is where you grip the audience by giving them a look into the life of your protagonist, or this is also where you might lose the audience if you take too long to get into the story. The setup is also the part of the film where we introduce the 6 things that need fixing that we covered in the second video of this challenge. If I had to guess Tony Stark's 6 things that need fixing, I would say that he's lost touch with reality. He may be good at using his cool guy persona to avoid letting anyone in. He doesn't stop to appreciate his journey so far. He doesn't pitch up when he says he would. He passes things off like they don't mean anything, and he's pretty arrogant. So in the setup of Iron Man, we get an introduction to some of the main characters, and then we also learn that Tony Stark is smart, yet somewhat full of himself, and that he also profits off war and weapons. Next, we have the catalyst. This is the part in the film where your protagonist's life is turned upside down. It's the life-changing point in the movie where something happens that rips your main character from their comfort zone. So we saw the car blow up earlier, but Tony's life truly changes when he wakes up in a cave and realizes that his chest is wired to a car battery. As if this isn't shocking enough, terrorists enter carrying weapons made by him. What propels his story forward is that Tony is instructed to build more missiles for the terrorists. It's a life and death scenario, leaving him little room for morality. Next is the debate. This is the part in the film where your character debates whether to move forward in the journey or whether to remain the same. The book says that the debate should pose a question of some kind. Tony is in a cave surrounded by terrorists who are using his machinery for harm as opposed to maintaining peace. He can't let them get away with this. His ego and legacy are on the line, as well as his life, so he has to build something or his fate is obvious. The question we ask here is, what is he building? Next, we break into Act 2. Now, something big needs to happen here that shows an obvious break from the world our main character was used to the journey that our protagonist is now going on. Our protagonist fully commits to their adventure and they actively start moving towards it. In a moment packed with tension, we see Tony suit up, break out, and escape the terrorist camp. Next, we have the B story. This is the part of the film where you plant a love story, a friendship, or a mentor of some kind. These can be new characters that join the journey that our protagonist is going on, and they can also introduce a break from the main storyline. We see how Pepper is the only person who seems to understand who Tony is at his core. Tony somehow is able to show some of his vulnerability around her. Even though he's a man of iron, well, she sees his heart. Next, we have the fun and games. Blake Snyder wrote in his book that this part of the film should answer the question that the audience asks when they sit down in their seat, and that is, why did I come to see this movie? If you're trying to visualize the scenes that may be in the fun and games portion of the film, think of all of the scenes that pop up when you watch a trailer of a film. This is an exciting reminder of the story's core, the conflict, as well as what's at stake. Think of the fun parts of the proposal when we see how uncomfortable it is for Sandra Bullock and the Ryan Reynolds character to act out their lie. But let's go back to Iron Man. We see Tony come back to the world as he knew it, but completely changed. He refuses to continue selling weapons after seeing what they can do in the hands of the wrong people, and this causes an uproar in his company where the board wants to get rid of him. The fun and games come into play as we start seeing him work on something new. From here we have the midpoint. The midpoint is either an up or down moment that splits the film in half. In a moment, our protagonist experiences a false success or a false failure. At this point, the stakes increase, and you could also introduce a ticking clock to resolve the goal within a specific time frame. In Iron Man, we see a false victory. Tony takes his new suit for a victorious spin. We also see Pepper gift him with a token that points to Tony being more than a self-obsessed businessman. She highlights that he has a heart. But from here, the bad guys close in. Here, conflict and overwhelming obstacles get in the way of our protagonist achieving their goal. Our protagonist is thrown off balance or off course by internal or external antagonistic forces. Our poor main character faces increasing challenges and setbacks. Everything starts falling apart in Tony's life because he's decided to change for the better. His decision to stop selling weapons is resulting in betrayal from a friend in his core circle, Stain, who filed the injunction against Tony to have him removed from his company. At the same time, we see terrorists resemble his old suit, and if this isn't enough, he faces the internal conflicts of doubting whether he can be the kind of guy that Pepper deserves. Things go from bad to worse as Tony defeats the terrorist, but his betrayer, Stain, discovers his old suit's pieces and aims to build his own version of the Iron Man suit. From the bad guys closing in, we move to the all is lost moment. Blake Snyder has an interesting rule. He says that it's never as good as it seems in the midpoint, and it's never as bad as it seems at the all is lost moment, or vice versa. He also explains that this is the point in the film where you need to introduce a whiff of death. I thought his logic was interesting because he said if you don't have anyone to kill off, well, then get creative and maybe show a plant dying in the background, or have a distant family member pass away, or it could even be the end of the road for a goldfish. Anyway, something big needs to happen here where our protagonist gets the clarity they need to step into who they need to be to achieve their goal. In a moment, there is a need for a dramatic turnaround. In Iron Man, Stain kills Tony by removing the arc from his chest. As he leaves, Stain admits that he ordered the hit on Tony, and to hit the final nail in the coffin, Stain mentions that he may kill Pepper. Next, we have the dark night of the soul. Here, our protagonist is beat up to the point of feeling hopeless, clueless, or broken. And because of this, they are forced to reflect on their journey and face their inner demons and flaws. At his lowest low, moments away from death, Tony hobbles over to the gift from Pepper. This was his first arc reactor, or as Pepper labeled it, his heart. We break into 3 now. At this point, the A and B stories are supposed to intertwine. Our lead character has worked through everything that needed fixing, and they've turned into the version of themselves that they need to be to claim their victory. This is the point in the film where our protagonist can also prepare for the final face-off with the antagonist. With his heart now in place, Tony suits up to face his nemesis. It's time for the finale. This is the most intense and action-packed part of the film, where time is of the essence for our protagonist to now confront the main conflict or the antagonist. At this part of the film, Tony and Stain have a battle that results in Tony needing to beg Pepper to destroy the arc reactor. She does. Stain is killed, and for a moment it seems like Tony is as well. It's time for the final image. The final shot or scene could be one that mirrors the opening image. The goal is to show how the protagonist and their world have changed as a result of them going on this journey. This final image provides a sense of closure. The film ends with Tony sharing with the press that he is Iron Man. He is no longer selling weapons of mass destruction. He is a superhero that personally fights for peace. Save the Cat is the most used screenwriting book that I personally own, and every time I read it, I get something new from it. You are welcome to use my Amazon affiliate link, which I will leave for you in the description, should you wish to get your hands on your own copy of the book. In the next video, we will discuss our next topic, which you are more than ready for at this point. So I'm excited to see you in the next video. Let me know how today went. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.